The year was 2350, and Earth was no longer the isolated, vulnerable planet it had once been. It had transformed into an unstoppable force, a beacon of strength in a galaxy teeming with alien civilizations. The United Earth Alliance, UEA, the governing body of Earth, had risen to power after decades of strategic maneuvering, technological advancements, and unrelenting ambition. Their purpose was clear: Earth would not just be a player in the galactic arena, it would rule the stars. In the early years of the 23rd century, humanity's explorations had been confined to their solar system. Their first major breakthrough came with the discovery of a stable wormhole just outside the orbit of Saturn. This wormhole led to the Epsilon Eridani system, home to dozens of alien species. Contact with these civilizations had been tense at first, mutual distrust ruled the early years. However, the UEA's leadership was unlike any Earth government that had come before. The UEA was a new breed of government, one forged in the fires of necessity, shaped by humans who had learned from past mistakes. They were ruthless, calculating, and determined to establish Earth's supremacy. Captain Aurelia Drayton, a brilliant tactician and commander of the UEA's flagship Courageous, embodied the new spirit of Earth's military might. She had risen through the ranks, not through political maneuvering, but through sheer merit. Her intellect, courage, and her ability to inspire loyalty in her crew were unmatched. Under her command, the Courageous was a symbol of Earth's military prowess, capable of facing entire alien fleets with ease. The first conflict had come with the Threxians, a technologically advanced reptilian species that saw the UEA's expansion as a threat to their own dominance. They believed their superior weaponry and ancient war tactics would crush the upstart humans, but they had underestimated Earth's resourcefulness. The Threxian fleet was annihilated in the Battle of Titan, with Captain Drayton's Courageous leading the charge. The victory was a watershed moment for humanity. It was not just a military triumph, it was a declaration to the galaxy that Earth was no longer a minor power. By the time humanity had established their first few colonies on distant planets, word of their victory over the Threxians spread like wildfire through the galaxy. The UEA was no longer a mere political entity, it was becoming the core of a new interstellar empire. Diplomacy had its place, but it was Earth's military dominance that ensured peace, for now. Some alien species, like the Illyrians, an insectoid race known for their vast psychic abilities, attempted to push back. But Earth had learned the value of cooperation with those who were willing to engage in peaceful trade. The UEA formed an uneasy alliance with the Illyrians, utilizing their telepathic networks to extend Earth's reach across the stars more efficiently than ever before. Yet, as the UEA expanded, not all species were as receptive. The Dracs, a species of massive, war-hungry giants with armor that could resist the most powerful human-made weapons, remained fiercely independent. They would never submit to Earth's authority. These giants were scattered across the outer rim of the galaxy, but their numbers were growing, and their hatred of humans was deepening. They were waiting, watching, knowing that sooner or later, the UEA would come for them. The first signs of the coming conflict were subtle, but Captain Drayton was not one to ignore the whispers of war. A series of unexplained attacks on UEA outposts in the outer colonies were traced back to the Dracs. It was clear the time for diplomacy was over. Earth was about to face its greatest challenge yet. As the Courageous and its fleet of Earth's finest warships made their way to the outer rim, the UEA began to mobilize every resource at its disposal. The Empire was preparing for its most difficult battle, but this was what they had been trained for. The stars would bend to Earth's will, or they would be conquered. In the heart of the UEA capital on Earth, in the towering spires of New Atlanta, a council of the most powerful leaders gathered. General Kieran Eris, the architect of Earth's military expansion, stood before the holographic map of the galaxy. His eyes scanned the outer rim, focusing on the growing Drax threat. "This is our moment," he declared, his voice cold and commanding. "The galaxy is watching, and we will show them who rules the stars." The countdown had begun. Humanity had risen from the ashes of their former isolation to become the very heartbeat of the galaxy. But with power came responsibility, and danger. The question now was whether Earth's growing empire would thrive, or whether its enemies would unite to bring it crashing down. In the end, only one truth remained: humanity's ambition had no limits, and they would stop at nothing to claim their place as rulers of the stars. The Courageous drifted silently through the blackness of space, its massive hull reflecting the distant glow of stars. Captain Aurelia Drayden stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the star charts before her. The tension in the air was palpable. The Dracs were no ordinary threat, they were a force of nature, a brutal, relentless species that had never known the touch of mercy. The upcoming conflict would be humanity's first true test since their rise to power, and there was no room for failure. The UEA had already initiated a blockade of Drax-controlled systems, hoping to strangle their war machine before it could fully mobilize. The Drax had proven difficult to track, however. Their ships were equipped with cloaking technology that made them nearly invisible to human sensors. This had forced Earth's fleet to adopt new tactics, using large, heavily shielded ships like the Courageous to draw out the Drax, while smaller, faster vessels scouted the darkness of space. General Kieran Eris was as steely and calculated as ever, overseeing the campaign from Earth's command center. His holographic projection flickered in front of Drayden as he spoke with a tone of absolute certainty. "We cannot allow them to regroup. If we let the Drax spread their forces further into our colonies, they will become an unstoppable juggernaut. We must strike now, before they can mount a counteroffensive." Drayden nodded sharply, her eyes never leaving the view of the vast, star-strewn expanse beyond the ship's bridge. "We'll do what we do best. We'll hit them hard and fast. Keep the pressure on until they break." She had no doubts about Earth's ability to wage war. The UEA had built its military on cutting-edge technology, but it wasn't just the machines or the ships that made them formidable, it was the human spirit. Earth's soldiers fought with a fury that even the most battle-hardened alien species struggled to comprehend. And with Captain Drayden leading them, victory seemed inevitable. Yet, even as the fleet prepared for its assault, a whisper of uncertainty had begun to spread. The Drax were not a race that yielded easily. The previous skirmishes had proven that they would not surrender without a fight. Their brutal tactics and overwhelming physical strength had already crippled several smaller outposts on the fringe of UEA territory. A confrontation between Earth and the Drax was no longer a question of if, it was a matter of when. As the fleet entered Drax space, the first wave of enemy warships emerged from the shadows, like enormous predators circling their prey. They were massive, their hulls covered in jagged metal, designed to intimidate. But the Courageous was not intimidated. Aurelia stood tall, her voice calm but commanding as she issued the order to engage. "Fire all weapons," she said, and the ship's massive cannons erupted, sending beams of pure energy streaking through the darkness. The battle was on. The Drax responded in kind, their ships releasing a barrage of plasma fire that illuminated the void. The first clash was violent, a flash of color in the blackness, but humanity had the advantage of experience. Their ships were faster, more maneuverable, and their weapons, though not as devastating as the Drax's, were more precise. The UEA fleet had learned how to fight smart, not just hard. Despite their initial advantage, the Drax were relentless. They took every hit and gave back twice as much. Their ships advanced like a storm, crashing into the UEA's formation. The Courageous herself took a direct hit, shaking violently as the shields flared to life, absorbing the blast. The bridge crew braced themselves, but Drayden remained unshaken, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Reinforce shields, target their weak points. Don't let them surround us." The battle raged on, but it was clear that Earth was not going to back down. The Drax were powerful, but they were also predictable. With every strike, Earth's fleet adapted, shifting tactics, exploiting the weaknesses that the Drax failed to hide. Slowly, but surely, the tide of battle turned in humanity's favor. But as the final Drax warship fell, a sense of unease crept over Captain Drayden. The battle had been won, but at what cost? The fleet had suffered heavy casualties. Several ships were crippled, and many more had sustained critical damage. She stared out at the wreckage in the distance, wondering if this was only the beginning of a long and bloody conflict. General Eris's voice echoed over the comms. "The Drax are retreating, Captain. We've won the battle, but we haven't won the war. Drayden's mind raced. The Dracs had been pushed back for now, but the real question was whether humanity could hold on to its new empire. The galaxy was vast, and more enemies would surely rise to challenge Earth's growing dominance. The stakes had been raised. The Dracs were just one obstacle in a galaxy filled with potential threats. And as Aurelia Drayden stood on the bridge, watching the aftermath of the battle unfold, she knew one thing for certain: Earth's reign had only just begun. But it would not come without its challenges. The aftermath of the battle with the Dracs had left the UEA fleet battered but victorious. The Courageous, along with several other key warships, limped back to Earth's home system for repairs, their once pristine hulls now scarred from the relentless battle. The galactic war that had been waged for so long was far from over, but the Dracs had been pushed back for now, and that was a hard-earned victory. Despite the triumph, Captain Aurelia Drayden's thoughts were heavy. She sat alone in her quarters, her fingers tracing the surface of a map of the stars, now dotted with UEA-controlled colonies. The growing empire had expanded its borders, but each new star system came with its own complications. The Dracs were just the first in a long line of challenges. It was only a matter of time before the galaxy's other power players took notice and began to respond. A message flashed across her desk, a diplomatic request from the Illyrians. She sighed, rubbing her temples. The Illyrians, with their telepathic prowess and vast psychic abilities, had been one of Earth's strongest allies since the Threxian War. But even allies could be dangerous. The message came from Ambassador Lyra, the Illyrian representative to the UEA. It was a formal request for a meeting to discuss the recent conflict. The Illyrians were wise, patient, and calculating, and their telepathic networks made them indispensable to Earth's efforts at controlling the galaxy. Yet, Drayden had always felt a certain unease about their motives. The Illyrians were not interested in helping humanity out of kindness; they sought their own advantage, and it was clear they wanted something in return for their alliance. With a sharp exhale, Drayden accepted the request. The meeting would take place on the Illyrian homeworld, a lush, crystalline planet nestled in a distant star system. It was a neutral ground, a place where political deals were struck and secrets were traded. And for Captain Drayden, it was a chance to understand just how much the Illyrians were willing to help, and at what cost. A few days later, Captain Drayden found herself aboard a sleek, diplomatic shuttle, heading towards the heart of Illyrian space. The planet loomed large on the viewports as they entered the atmosphere, its surface shimmering with the glow of vast, crystalline structures. The Illyrians had built their civilization inside massive crystal caverns, where their psychic abilities were amplified by the planet's natural energy. Drayden was aware that every moment she spent on the Illyrian world was a game of high-stakes diplomacy. One wrong move could tip the balance in the galaxy. She was met at the shuttle bay by Ambassador Lyra herself, a tall, elegant figure, her violet skin shimmering faintly in the soft light. Her long, flowing tendrils, used for telepathic communication, glowed with a soft pulse, signaling a mood that was calm but calculating. Captain Drayden, Lyra greeted her telepathically, the words not spoken aloud but entering Drayden's mind with ease. "Welcome to Illyris, our home. We trust your journey was pleasant?" "It was uneventful, Ambassador," Drayden replied mentally, her voice cool and controlled. "But I would rather get to the heart of the matter. The galaxy is shifting, and we need to know where the Illyrians stand." Lyra's tendrils pulsed, and she motioned for Drayden to follow her down the marble halls of the Illyrian capital. "You are direct, Captain. I admire that. But before we discuss matters of war, we must first address matters of peace." As they entered the central chamber, Drayden could feel the weight of the room. The Illyrians were known for their long history of philosophical debates, and their culture revolved around the pursuit of balance and understanding. Yet Drayden had learned that peace was often a negotiation, one that required both strength and subtlety. "I understand the Dracs are not the only threat you face," Lyra continued, her voice smooth and serene in Drayden's mind. "There are others out there, races we have yet to encounter, who may seek to challenge your growing empire. Our telepathic networks could help you monitor these threats, Captain." But our assistance comes at a price. Drayden's brow furrowed. She had anticipated this. The Illyrians did not offer help without wanting something in return. And what is the price, Ambassador? She asked, her tone carefully neutral. Lyra's tendrils swayed as she paused. We require more autonomy within the UEA. Our colonies, our people, currently, we are treated as subservient allies. We want more power in the decisions that affect the galaxy. We seek an equal seat at the table, Captain. We are not just passive observers. The offer was tempting. The Illyrians' psychic abilities were invaluable, and their intelligence network was unparalleled. Yet, granting them more power within the UEA would shift the balance of authority, something that could destabilize Earth's control over the Empire. Drayden weighed the options carefully. The Illyrians had been instrumental in securing Earth's place among the stars, but could she afford to give them more influence? Earth's military might was its strongest asset, and the UEA leadership would not tolerate anyone challenging its supremacy. Yet, turning the Illyrians away could risk losing their support, something Earth could not afford. I'll consider your request, Drayden finally replied. But understand this, Ambassador, Earth is the heart of this empire. If we are to continue to stand united, no one, not even you, will be allowed to tip the scales too far. Lyra's smile was almost imperceptible, but Drayden could feel the weight of her words in her mind. We shall see, Captain. We shall see. Back on Earth, the diplomatic talks with the Illyrians had left a lingering unease in Captain Aurelia Drayden's mind. The Illyrians were not content with simply being allies anymore. They wanted power, influence, and a greater role in the leadership of the growing Galactic Empire. Drayden knew their request would be difficult to dismiss, but she also understood that ceding too much ground would only serve to weaken Earth's grip on the stars. While the talks were ongoing, another storm was brewing in the far reaches of the galaxy. The Dracs, while having suffered a major defeat, were far from defeated. Their warlords had gone into hiding, but they had regrouped, reorganized, and begun to gather their strength. The defeat had not broken their will, it had only hardened it. They were biding their time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back at Earth's vulnerable borders. In the distant edge of the galaxy, an uncharted system had caught the attention of UEA intelligence. This system, once thought to be barren, had shown signs of activity. A strange signal had been picked up by an automated probe. Drayden's curiosity was piqued. It could be another potential threat, or perhaps a rare discovery that could turn the tides in humanity's favor. Either way, she knew the UEA couldn't afford to ignore it. As the Courageous left the orbit of Earth and made its way toward the uncharted system, Drayden gathered her senior officers in the war room. The mission ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. It would not be a simple exploration. There was something more at play in the depths of space, something that had been hidden from the rest of the galaxy for centuries. Lieutenant Commander Jace Renner, Drayden's most trusted tactical officer, spoke first. The signal was weak, but it's consistent. We've traced it to a small moon orbiting a gas giant. It's strange, Captain, there's no record of any civilization on that moon, and yet, the signal is unmistakably artificial. What are we dealing with? Drayden asked, her voice calm but firm, her mind already running through the possible scenarios. Renner hesitated for a moment before answering. It could be a relic from an ancient civilization, or a weapon. If the Dracs or another hostile species are involved, it could be a trap. Captain Drayden thought for a moment, her fingers tapping rhythmically against the arm of her chair. The unknowns in this situation were many, but she wasn't one to shy away from danger. The Courageous had faced insurmountable odds before, and had always emerged victorious. This time, though, it felt different. The stakes were higher. The galaxy was changing, and every decision could tip the balance of power. I want a full analysis of the system, Commander. No surprises. Let's find out who, or what, is sending that signal. Bring it back to Earth, if it's valuable. If it's a threat, she let the sentence hang in the air, her meaning clear. Upon arriving at the gas giant's moon, the Courageous settled into a stationary orbit as its crew began the painstaking work of scanning the surface. The moon was icy and desolate, with only the faintest trace of mineral deposits. But as they delved deeper into the scans, a discovery was made. Beneath the surface, buried in a long-forgotten cavern, lay a structure. It was enormous. A sprawling network of jagged metal and crystalline formations that seemed both ancient and advanced, far beyond anything humanity had encountered. The signal emanated from deep within this underground complex, drawing Drayden's attention like a magnet. Drayden stood on the bridge, looking at the incoming scan data, her mind racing. "Get me a direct line to General Eris," she commanded, her voice low and focused. Moments later, General Eris's stern face appeared on the holographic screen. "Captain, what's the situation?" "There's something down here, General." "Something big," Drayden replied. "It's a structure of unknown origin. We've never seen anything like it. I need to know if it's a potential weapon or a trap." Eris's expression grew serious. "If it's a weapon, you know the consequences. Humanity's empire won't tolerate any threat that could jeopardize the peace we've worked so hard to establish." "I'm aware," Drayden replied, her voice unwavering. "We'll send a team down to investigate. If it's dangerous, we'll neutralize it. But if there's knowledge to be gained, we'll bring it back." The team, led by Drayden herself, descended into the cavernous depths of the structure. As they ventured further, the air grew colder, and the walls seemed to pulse with an eerie energy. The design of the structure was unlike anything Drayden had ever seen, a blend of alien architecture and something even older, something that defied classification. Eventually, they reached a central chamber, where the signal was strongest. A large, glowing crystal was embedded in the center of the room, its energy radiating outward in pulses that matched the frequency of the signal. As Drayden approached, she felt a strange sensation, as if the crystal were aware of her presence, responding to her movements. "Do not touch it," Lieutenant Renner warned, his voice tinged with caution. "There's something off about this place." But before Drayden could respond, a sudden shift in the energy around them caused the ground to tremble. The crystal flared with a blinding light, and a voice echoed throughout the chamber, not through their ears, but inside their minds. "Asterisk, you have awakened us. Now, you will understand your place in the galaxy." Asterisk. The voice was alien, ancient, and filled with an unmistakable authority. It wasn't a warning, it was a command. Drayden's eyes widened as the walls around them began to shift, and the ground beneath their feet began to move. The chamber was alive, alive with something that had been dormant for far too long. The ground beneath Captain Drayden and her team shuddered violently as the crystalline structure began to hum, the low vibrations resonating through the walls. The voice that had echoed through their minds had left a lingering feeling of unease, a sense of something far beyond their comprehension stirring beneath the surface. Drayden could feel her pulse quicken, but she forced herself to maintain control. This was humanity's first encounter with something truly ancient, and she couldn't afford to let fear dictate their next move. The crystal at the center of the chamber pulsed with a blinding light, growing brighter with each passing moment. The team, armed with standard-issue weapons and equipment, stood at the ready, but Drayden knew they were out of their depth. Whatever this was, it was far beyond human technology. "We need to get out of here," Lieutenant Renner said, his voice edged with urgency. "Whatever this thing is, it's too much for us to handle." But Drayden shook her head, her resolve hardening. "We don't know what this is yet. I'm not leaving without answers." As if in response to her words, the crystal flared even brighter, and the walls of the chamber seemed to twist, as though they were alive, folding and unfolding in unnatural patterns. Drayden instinctively stepped forward, her hand reaching out toward the crystal, but Renner grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. "Captain, don't!" Renner warned, his grip tight. "That's what it wants." The voice echoed again, louder this time, reverberating through the chamber. Asterisk, "You are not ready. But your curiosity will be your undoing. The galaxy has been waiting for you, for all of you." Asterisk. The sensation of being watched intensified, and Drayden suddenly realized that the crystal wasn't just a relic, it was an ancient, sentient entity, aware of their every move. The realization sent a cold shiver down her spine. Before anyone could react, the chamber erupted into a cacophony of sound. The walls shimmered and bent, warping into new configurations, and the crystal at the center of the room began to pulse with an overwhelming energy. Suddenly, a flash of light burst from the crystal, and Drayden was thrown backward, her team falling to the ground in disarray. As she regained her footing, a strange fog began to creep into the chamber, thick and suffocating. The once bright crystal now emitted a dark energy, its surface rippling like water disturbed by an unseen force. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze, time itself held its breath. And then, the fog cleared. Before them stood a figure, a being of pure light and shadow, its form constantly shifting, never settling on any one shape. It was both alien and familiar, a presence that transcended human understanding. Its voice, when it spoke again, was not in their minds but in the very air around them, vibrating in their bones. Asterisk, you have unlocked the gateway. We are the architects, the creators of your ancestors. The galaxy is ours. It is time for the heirs to inherit their legacy. Asterisk. The air around Drayden felt thick, like it was charged with the weight of ancient knowledge. The being's words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. The architects. The creators of humanity's ancestors? Drayden's mind raced as she tried to process the implications. Could this alien force be the origin of humanity's first civilization? And if so, why had it remained hidden for so long? Renner stood slowly, eyes wide with disbelief. What do you mean, heirs? We are the heirs. The being's shifting form seemed to pause, as if considering his words. Asterisk, you have only begun to understand your place in the greater order. The time has come for the children of Earth to ascend, to fulfill their destiny. The Dracs are a distraction, a symptom of a greater threat that looms over the galaxy. Your enemies are not who you think they are. Asterisk. The revelation hit Drayden like a shockwave. The Dracs, the immediate threat, could they really be nothing more than a diversion? Was the real enemy something far greater, something that humanity had yet to even imagine? The architects had been silent for eons, but now they spoke as though the galaxy was about to enter a new era, one that humanity might not be ready for. We can't handle this alone, Drayden murmured, more to herself than to anyone else. If they're right, then everything we've fought for so far has been preparing us for something we don't even understand yet. The being's form wavered again, its voice now tinged with a sense of finality. Asterisk, your race has potential, Captain Drayden. The legacy of Earth is written in the stars. But be warned, there are others who will seek to claim this power before you. The galaxy is in flux, and the coming storm will test your empire like never before. Asterisk. Drayden's heart raced as the being's words echoed in her mind. The architects were not offering guidance, but a challenge, a test of humanity's worthiness. But the cryptic warning left more questions than answers. Who were these others, and how far would they go to claim what humanity had only just begun to comprehend? As the chamber began to return to its previous state, the crystal's glow dimming and the structure's warping energy subsiding, Drayden took a slow breath. Her thoughts were clouded with uncertainty, but she knew one thing for sure: Earth's empire was about to be thrust into a far greater conflict than anyone had imagined. And the architects, whoever they were just the beginning. She turned to her team, the weight of the situation settling on her shoulders. Prepare for extraction, she ordered, her voice steady despite the storm raging in her mind. We've got a lot to report back to Earth. As they made their way back to the shuttle, Drayden couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the first ripple of a much larger storm. The galaxy was shifting, and Earth's place in it was more fragile than ever. Captain Drayden and her team returned to the Courageous, the strange encounter with the architects leaving them all with a sense of foreboding. The ancient beings had warned them of a greater threat looming over the galaxy, a force far beyond the Dracs or any enemy humanity had yet faced. As they ascended back into orbit, Drayden's mind raced. The galaxy was teetering on the edge of something vast and unknown, and humanity, despite its growing empire, might be far more vulnerable than it had ever realized. Back on Earth, the news of the mission's findings spread like wildfire. The UEA Council convened in an emergency session to discuss the implications of Drayden's report. As she stood before the council, her mind replaying the voice of the architects in her head, she could feel the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her. The decisions made in the coming days would shape humanity's future in ways they could never have predicted. Captain, you are suggesting that these so-called architects are the progenitors of human civilization? General Eris's voice was skeptical, his stern gaze fixed on Drayden as he addressed the council. That they've been watching us for eons, waiting for the right time to reveal themselves? Drayden nodded. Yes, General. The architects claim to be the creators of our ancestors. They speak of a legacy, one that is tied to Earth's destiny in the galaxy. But they also warned us about a threat, a greater enemy that we've yet to face. The room fell silent, the gravity of her words settling on the council members like a heavy shroud. Earth's military might was unrivaled, and the UEA had forged an empire that spanned multiple star systems. But the revelation of the architects, and the warning they'd given, left them all uncertain of what lay ahead. We cannot act on conjecture, said Ambassador Lyra, the Illyrian representative, her violet eyes glowing faintly as she spoke. The Illyrians believe that the architects may be manipulating you, Captain. Perhaps they've awakened this greater threat, to test your resolve or to guide you in ways we cannot yet understand. Drayden's gaze remained unwavering. I don't believe the architects are manipulating us. They've made it clear they expect humanity to face whatever is coming on its own terms. But I do believe we need to prepare for what's ahead. This greater threat could be something that challenges our very existence. The council members exchanged uneasy glances, the tension palpable. For centuries, humanity had been the dominant force in the galaxy. The UEA's military strength and strategic alliances had kept the peace, or so they thought. But now, with the revelation of the architects and their ominous warning, that peace seemed fragile. Then it is settled, General Eris said, his voice grave. We will begin preparations for a galaxy-wide defense. But we must be cautious. The UEA cannot afford to appear weak. Our enemies will sense our uncertainty. Drayden's thoughts were a whirlwind, but she forced herself to focus. She had always believed that humanity's strength lay in its unity, in its ability to adapt and fight against the odds. The architects had shown her something much greater, something that could either become a tool for humanity's advancement or a source of unimaginable destruction. As the council session ended and the members filtered out of the room, Drayden was left alone with her thoughts. She stared out the window, watching the stars twinkle in the distance. They were the same stars that had guided humanity to its present, an empire stretching across the galaxy. But now, those stars seemed distant, almost foreign, as if they no longer belonged to Earth. Weeks passed, and the UEA began to prepare for the storm the architects had warned about. Ships were mobilized, fleets were reformed, and intelligence gathered from the far reaches of the galaxy was scrutinized for any sign of the impending threat. But despite all their efforts, the UEA was no closer to understanding what this greater enemy truly was. Then, one fateful day, the first sign of the enemy appeared. A fleet of unknown ships, dark and menacing, arrived on the edges of UEA space. Their sleek, black hulls shimmered with a dark energy that defied all known technology. They moved swiftly, almost silently, as though they were a shadow moving across the galaxy. Drayden watched as the fleet appeared on the long-range sensors of the Courageous, the massive ships coming into focus. They've arrived, Drayden muttered, her voice barely audible. The fleet was not Drax. These ships were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. They were not simply another hostile species, they were something more, something ancient. The unknown fleet made no attempt at communication. Instead, they moved with deadly precision, heading toward the heart of the UEA's territories. The fear was palpable throughout the fleet, but Drayden's resolve hardened. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for. We need to intercept them before they reach the core systems, Drayden ordered. Her voice rang out across the bridge, steady and commanding. All ships are to prepare for battle. We'll meet them head-on. As the Courageous and the rest of the fleet sped toward the approaching threat, Drayden's mind raced. Who were these invaders? And why had the architects warned of them? The galaxy, it seemed, was about to face a reckoning, and humanity would be at the center of it. The two fleets collided in a blaze of light and fire, the sound of distant explosions filling the airwaves as the UEA ships engaged the enemy. The unknown fleet fought with an eerie precision, their movements coordinated and almost instinctual. They did not use traditional weaponry. Instead, their ships seemed to harness a dark energy that warped space around them, creating weapons of pure destruction. Drayden watched as the battle raged on, her mind focused entirely on the present. This was humanity's test. A test of resolve. A test of survival. The storm had arrived. The battle between the UEA and the unknown fleet raged across the stars, a violent clash of technologies and wills. The Courageous, along with the combined strength of Earth's military, fought valiantly, but the dark energy wielded by the enemy fleet proved to be unlike anything humanity had ever faced. Ships twisted and disintegrated under the onslaught of strange, destructive beams. The UEA's forces, despite their unmatched skill and advanced weaponry, were beginning to falter. Captain Drayden stood at the helm of the Courageous, watching as the stars outside became a blur of chaos. The enemy fleet was relentless, their ships never hesitating, never retreating. Earth's empire was under threat like never before. "We can't hold them off much longer, Captain," Lieutenant Renner said, his voice tight with urgency as he scanned the battle unfolding on the tactical display. "They're using some kind of gravitational manipulation. It's tearing apart our ships from the inside out." Drayden's mind raced, trying to think of a solution. The UEA had no defenses against the enemy's technology. If they couldn't find a way to stop them soon, the galaxy would fall into their hands. "They're not just invaders," Drayden muttered, as something clicked in her mind. "They're more than a fleet, they're a message." Renner glanced at her, confusion in his eyes. "A message, Captain?" Drayden turned, her eyes sharp with realization. "The architects warned us of this. They spoke of a greater threat, a force that would challenge humanity's place in the galaxy. But it's not just about power, it's about the control of knowledge. These invaders, they're not here to conquer, they're here to erase." The enemy fleet didn't want to rule Earth, they wanted to wipe out humanity's legacy, to erase the very memory of Earth's rise in the galaxy. The architects had spoken of a greater legacy, one that tied humanity's future to the galaxy's past. These invaders, whoever they were, sought to prevent that future from ever coming to fruition. Renner's face paled as the full weight of Drayden's words sank in. "You mean, they want to destroy everything humanity has built?" "Yes. They are the erasers of history," Drayden said, her voice resolute. "But we're not going to let them." As the Courageous engaged the enemy fleet once more, Drayden's mind turned to the strange power the architects had hinted at, the legacy they had spoken of, the power hidden within humanity's potential. Could it be that the architects were trying to lead them to the key to defeating this enemy? A power that was buried deep within the very fabric of humanity's destiny? "I have a plan," Drayden said, her voice cutting through the tension on the bridge. "We need to get to the center of their fleet, find their command ship. We destroy that, and the rest of their forces will collapse." Renner hesitated, looking out at the enemy ships closing in. "Captain, that's suicidal. We'll never make it." "We don't have a choice," Drayden said, her eyes steely. "If we don't strike now, Earth and everything we've fought for will be lost. The architects are counting on us." The Courageous broke through the enemy lines, charging directly toward the heart of the enemy fleet. The dark energy blasts from the enemy ships filled the space around them, but Drayden's resolve never wavered. She could see it now, their command ship, a massive, obsidian structure at the center of their forces, pulsing with dark energy. As the Courageous neared, Drayden ordered all shields and weapons to full power. The crew braced for impact, knowing this could very well be their final mission. But Drayden knew that this was humanity's only chance to survive. If they could strike at the heart of the enemy's fleet, they could break their hold on the galaxy. "Prepare to fire on my mark," she said, her voice unwavering. "This is for Earth. This is for the future." Renner nodded grimly, his fingers poised over the firing controls. The Courageous closed in, the tension so thick it could almost be felt in the air. "Now!" Drayden shouted. A wave of energy surged from the Courageous' weapons systems, smashing into the command ship's dark energy field. For a moment, it seemed as though the attack had no effect. The energy field shimmered, resisting the assault. But then, with a blinding flash, the field shattered, and the core of the command ship exploded in a cataclysmic burst of light. The enemy fleet faltered. Their ship seemed to lose all coordination, drifting helplessly through the void, disoriented without their command center. The Courageous and the remaining UEA ships pressed the advantage, cutting through the enemy forces with renewed strength. As the last of the enemy ships disintegrated into the cold depths of space, Drayden stood in the bridge, breathing heavily, her hands gripping the armrests of her chair. The battle had been won, but the cost had been great. Many lives had been lost, and the scars of the conflict would linger for a long time. But humanity had survived. The Empire had endured. "We did it," Renner said, his voice filled with disbelief. Drayden nodded, though her mind was still spinning with everything they had learned. The architects had shown them the way, but the storm they had warned of was not over. The galaxy had been reshaped, and humanity now stood at the center of a new, uncertain future. "We've won this battle," Drayden said, turning toward her crew. "But the war is far from over. The galaxy is full of mysteries, and there are forces we still don't understand. We've just begun our true journey." As the Courageous sailed back toward Earth, Drayden couldn't shake the feeling that this victory was only the beginning of a much larger story. The architects had been right, humanity had inherited a legacy that would define the future. And whatever that future held, Earth's empire would rise to meet it, ready for whatever came next.